Very good evening, friends. I hope so. I'm audible. Okay. Yeah. A very good evening, friends. So today, as we are talking about this, some of the basic topics of NCERT, what I have to focus for the examination. I think physical geography we have covered. See, covering all NCERTs in 5 hours. You know that, say, for example, covering the topics is not possible. But somewhere we should have an idea. We should at least know that what are those important topics. And some of the aspects, if it is concept, if it is very important for the examination, we'll take it for the discussion as such. Okay, right. So having said this, my dear friends, when it comes to human geography of India, like for example, the entire geography you can divide them into the four, say for example, major divisions. You call them as what? Physical geography of the world, physical geography of India, human geography of the world, and human geography of India. Or even say, for example, when you read your syllabus, right? When you read your syllabus, okay. What I understand, say, for example, if you ask me what exactly is the syllabus for preliminary examination, it says the physical, social, and economic geography of India and world. What is the social and economic geography? The socio-economic geography is the other name for human geography. Okay. So when I take socio-economic geography and simply if I just call it as what? Say for example, this human geography, then all put together, right? All put together, if you ask me, what are the major divisions we have? As I said, four major divisions we have, right? As I already said, physical geography of the world, physical geography of India, human geography of the world, and human geography of India. And one more thing here, we have followed an order, right? First two classes, we talked about physical geography of the world. The next class, that is yesterday's class, we are talking about the physical geography of India. Today I am taking this human geography of India. And tomorrow, maybe half the class will be engaging in what? The human geography of the world. This is according to the order of importance. Okay? Right, my dear friends. So having said this, what are the topics I have to cover from this particular book? I'll tell you. Say, for example, population. Maybe by the time you write the examination next year, I feel that population may become one very important topic. If you ask me why, when I talk about population, my dear friends, of course, if everything goes good, we'll be going for the census. See, 2021, suppose, say for example, we were supposed to have our census data, but I understand, say for example, 2021, given the pandemic situations, we are not able to conduct that census. Okay. So hopefully 2023 or the beginning of 2024 we'll be having our census document. So census document is the most reliable document when it comes for population. Okay. See, otherwise you have different, say for example, even National Family Health Survey report is there, right? But only thing is that the credibility of the outcome is what? Questionable. But once the census data comes in, that will be the most credible informations what we have. And population, somewhere we have to wait and we have to take the population data only from the census 2021 data. Any other data what we have now is an obsolete data. Obsolete means outdated because the last census what we had only in what 2011. So near about say for example 13 years, 12 to 13 years, we are devoid of data. And who knows? The World Population Meter projects that by the time we come up with the census, there is a chance that we may be the most populous country in the world. Maybe, say, for example, another few months, less than a year, the projection says we may cross Chinese population. Okay, so till now we are the largest democracy of the world. Maybe very shortly we'll be calling ourselves as what? The most populous country in the world. Okay, but whatever it is the case, we have to wait for the official data. Okay, so population is what is what as a concept we'll see. Forget about the numbers. Then we'll understand what exactly is migration. Okay, what are the different types of migration? Excuse me. What are the different types of migration? What are the different causes of migration? And finally, we'll also talk about the consequence of migration. Excuse me. Right. Causes and consequence. Again, when it comes to human development, most of these data I'm telling you, as a concept, we can take it. But somewhere, if you're just looking for the current informations, we have to rely on a report. So, when talk about human development, relying on HDA report is more relevant than, say, for example, relying on NCERT as such. So, what we'll do, Unit 1, we'll discuss about some of the concepts with respect to population and migration. Okay. And when it comes to human settlement, we'll try to understand what are the different types of human settlement. What do you mean by rural settlement? What do you mean by urban settlement? What exactly is the, say for example, factor that distinguishes between this rural and urban setup? It is all about the occupational nature. Am I right? The type of economic activity in what you are engaging in. Then we'll also talk about, say for example, a concept called as urbanization. What is urbanization? Of course, I understand, right? The tendency of, say for example, urban areas increasing, you call them as what? Urbanization. We'll also talk about urbanization. The consequence of this urbanization also we'll talk about. Okay. So land resource and agriculture may be somewhere I can recommend, say for example, this self-study. And let me tell you, my dear friends, agriculture is a very, very important topic. Very, very important topic. But unfortunately, say for example, the informations what we have in NCERT may not be so sufficient for examination. For this, agriculture alone, forget about the land resource, agriculture alone, so the very important crops. You ask me questions most of the time revolve around, say for example, only few crops. If I talk about food crops, right, somewhere I can take that of paddy, rice, wheat, and say for example, millets. If I talk about, say, for example, commercial crops, right? Maybe commercial crops. I can talk about jute, I can talk about cotton, I can talk about sugarcane. If I talk about plantation crop, I can talk about tea, coffee, and rubber. Okay. So somewhere, if I'm somewhere collecting the basic information about the 9 different crops, what I said, mostly, right? We are somewhere safe. Okay. Only thing is that I have to prepare, somewhere I have to know what is the geographical condition needed for such plantation. First and foremost, I should know what season each and every crop is somewhere planted. Whether it is a Rabi crop, or it is a Kharif crop, or it is a Zaid crop, I should know. What is missing here in NCERT? The geographical condition is missing. What is the temperature needed, right? What is the amount of precipitation needed? What kind of a soil it needs? How many frost-free days in a year it needs? Those nuances are missing. If you ask me, okay, then give me an alternate. I'll give you an alternate which is also an open source, right? NIOS material, only for agriculture. I'm telling you, say for example, only for the selected topic I'm saying. For agriculture, chapters like agriculture, right, you may rely on, say for example, right, you may rely on NIOS material. Okay, again, water resource also, of course, we'll have it from NCERT, but again, I would say that water resource also, you can slightly rely on NIOS. Okay, rest all, right, mineral and energy resources, manufacturing industries, right, we can take it with NCERT itself. At least mineral energy resources is more of factual information because I'll tell you where to concentrate, I'll tell you, right? But we may not discuss in detail, but industry, I'll just give you a larger idea. Planning and sustainable development, somewhere we'll keep out of our discussion purview. Transport and communication, what is very important, that alone somewhere I'll tell you, and what are the recent changes that has happened, that also I'll tell you. Okay, right. Right, my dear friends. Now, taking the case of population, right? Taking the case of population, right? See, data is what we have. If you ask me, right, give me the official data. Official data, whatever we have is according to the 2011 census. We do not have any other official data other than that. Okay. So, according to 2011 census, India is the second most populous country after China in the world with its total population of, say, for example, 1.2 crore. years, approximately. Right, this is 2011 census. Okay, fine. These are almost, say, for example, facts. Okay, now, if I just talk about the census, my dear friends, census, a very brief information about the census is given. All right. And my dear friends, this is the largest, say, for example, I told you, right? Say, for example, eventually this our census will become the world's largest census also. Okay. So the population data are collected through census operation held every 10 years. Okay. The first population census in India was conducted way back in, say, for example, 1872, but its first complete census was conducted only in what? 1881. After 1881, every 10 years we started having what? The census data as such. Okay, right. Now, when I talk about the distribution of population, right? Say, for example, this image gives you almost, say, for example, the district-wide or the state-wise distribution of population. Okay. Now here, of course, I have to go with what? The census information. But of course, if you ask me today, as of now, which is the most populous state in India, undoubtedly, right? The most populous state in India is Uttar Pradesh. Okay, right. And on the other hand, we also have something called as what? Density of population. Now, what is this density of population? People living per square kilometer of an area. Simple. How this density of population is calculated, if you ask me, the total population of a country divided by the total area of the country. So when I start dividing the area, start dividing the population with the area, somewhere I can arrive at a figure that in 1 square kilometer of an area, how many people are living. In that way, when talking about India, official census 2011, near about 382 people live per square kilometer of an area, right? Nearly 382 people. But when I talk about, say, for example, some of the states, union territories, density of population is very, very high. But if you ask me, right, among the states which is most densely populated, very thickly populated, it is Bihar, right? Bihar, my dear friends. Bihar, the density of population is somewhere around 1102, followed by West Bengal, 1029, followed by, say, for example, Kerala and Uttar Pradesh. Okay, Kerala comes number 4, sorry, excuse me, number 3. Uttar Pradesh comes at number 4. Okay. Now, if you ask me, okay, why exactly Bihar is so populated? Why West Bengal is so populated? And of course, I know which is the most populated state in India. It is UP, Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh is most populated and most thickly populated, say, for example, right? Thickly populated state in India is what? Bihar. But if you ask me what exactly is the reason, why exactly states of Bihar, UP, West Bengals are very much populated, if you ask me, answer is very simple, right? They are plains. And I should add a word called as what? Fertile plains, right? Fertile plains, my dear friends. See, among all the physiographic features we have plateaus, we have plains, we have mountains. Among all the physiographic features, which land has more carrying capacity, if you ask me? What is this carrying capacity? The ability of a land to hold population and, say, for example, to support the sustenance of population in the names of what? Agriculture, right? So, which type of a land has the maximum capacity, if you ask me? It is plains. Very technically, we say geodemographic load bearing capacity. And the two, these plains are very fertile, very, very fertile. Because, say, for example, we have this mighty Himalayan rivers are making these plains, right? The Gangetic plains. Okay. So, simple reason, if you ask me, right? Not only that, this logic everywhere you can apply. Whichever state has more percentage of plains, density of population will be on a higher side. Even say, for example, this, see, of course, exceptions will be there. You can apply this logic in northeastern states also. Somewhere randomly, my dear friends, if you take this northeastern state, assume that as of now I have 8 states. Randomly, any physical geography map or physical map of India, if you take it, and somewhere, if you analyze, right, you analyze a state, look for the plains. Not only physical map, green shaded region will be for plains. And one thing you will note, Wherever plains are more, wherever the percentage share of plains are more, there all population density will also be more. You can apply the simple logic and you check whether this logic is working or not. Right? As simple as this. So one day I understand on the other side, when I have a region which is more hilly in nature, hilly regions, right? Obviously density of population will be less. If I have a rainforest region, density of population will be less. If I have a desert, density of population will be less. Okay, that's the reason when I talk about Andaman and Nicobar Islands, density of population is less. When I talk about Arunachal Pradesh, density of population is less. Right? That is the reason. Okay, right, my friend. So, what is density of population? We have an idea. What exactly is population? Also, we have an idea. Right? I repeat again: the most populous state is Uttar Pradesh, whereas the most densely populated or thickly populated state is what? Bihar. Okay, right, my dear friends. Now, the growth of population. See, when I talk about the growth of population, what you have in, and one more thing, this data is not given, but still, since they're talking about census, normally we call them a census day. When exactly the census will be released, if you ask me? The first March of this, say, for example, this, right, 2011, 2021, am I right? That is what you call them as what census day, March 1st of the respective year. Okay, right. Now, I talk about the growth of population, my friends. Of course, you would have heard about, right, the demographic transition model, right? Demographic transitions model. Somewhere, whatever, maybe tomorrow's class also we will be having a avenue of discussing this demographic transition model. Somewhere very similar to this demographic transition model, I can see a kind of a transition when it comes to population increase, decadal growth of population rate. What is this decadal growth? When I talk about decadal growth, the growth of population, say for example, that happens for every 10 years once. You call them as what? Decadal population. Okay. Now see, somewhere my difference. Decadal, right? It means somewhere they are saying in what percentage the population is growing, right? Population is growing. And one more thing, my difference, say for example, 1901 to 19, taking the base population as 1901 compared to 1901, the 1911 population grew by what? 5.75 percentage. And say for example, 1911 to 1921, the population actually shrunk in the known history, in the known history of Indian population. 1911 or 1921 is the sense when exactly, say for example, this population actually declined officially, right? The population, number of population declined. Okay. The number of people were actually less than the previous census. And one of the reasons cited for this decline is what? The Spanish influence, if I'm not wrong. Okay. Right. And okay, my friends, barring this exception of 1921, so that's the reason most of the time we call this 1921 as a watershed year, right? See, for example, today we are talking about, say, for example, reducing the population, reduction of population, or we call them as what antenatal policies. Antenatal policies are actually, say, for example, I'll tell you, okay, you can do it, but it goes with socio-economic development. Okay, whatever it is the case, right? 1921 is a watershed year because this is the only time, according to the census, we have recorded a negative growth rate when it comes to population. Right. Okay. Then again, slowly, steadily after that, what we are seeing steadily, the rate of growth was increasing. Population was increasing. See, it grew at 11.6, then 14.2, 13.3, all of a sudden 21.5. Then it has reached the maximum of what? 24. Population was also growing. The rate of growth of population was also growing. Right. And my dear friends, after reaching the population by 1971, the growth rate started declining. Population did not decrease. Population is still increasing, but the growth rate started declining. 2011 was another watershed year. If you ask me why, because barring this exception of 1921, if I'm not including it, what I understand, every census, what is the number of people that is added? If you ask me, every census, the number of people added will be more than the previous census. 2011 is the first time when the number of people added was actually less than the previous census data. Okay, so that way, whatever I have marked are some of the very important watershed years of the census, right? 1921, 1971, 2011, and so on. Okay, right. All right, my dear friends. What is a decadal growth rate? That also we have seen. What are the other parameters, right? Growth of population, right? I told you, right? Watershed year. 1901 to 1921, how exactly this phase one of this population was seen as, right? 1921 to 51, how it is seen. 1951 to, that is 51, say for example, it is the first census which is taken after independence. And let me tell you, my difference. The census after independence, if I just take it, I'll show you the data also, right? Right, 1951. After 1951, okay, immediately after, say for example, freedom. Another census you take it, see, from 13, all of a sudden, it has went for what? 21, right? All of a sudden. So freedom also played a very important role in somewhere, right? Determining the population as such. Okay, right. Fine. See, one thing, always we see a balance, right? Or a kind of a trend that coexist between the aspects of population growth with the aspects of socio-economic development. Okay, right. So what are the different phases? Somewhere, right? You can read it. Okay. The regional variation in the population growth, somewhere we can skip it because 2011 is outdated when it comes to that fact. Okay. Okay. The composition of working, all this, somewhere we leave it. What is very, very important, we have taken it. Okay. Now moving on to the next topic, my dear friends, migration. So we'll understand what is migration. What are the different types of migration? What are the causes and consequences? See, if you ask me what exactly is migration, according to the definition, Indian definition of migration, census are normally taken. Okay. Assume that, say, for example, if census is taken, okay, international migration, a person who has changed his residence or her residence for more than 1 week itself, you call them as what? Migrants. But when I talk about, say, for example, Indian definition, right, our understanding says who is a migrant. If a person has a different, say, for example, address than that of the address what he has given in the previous census, he is considered as what? Migrant. Okay. Migration means change of residence, right? Change of residence, as simple as this, provided that you have a decent distance between the places. Okay. So you're familiar with the census in India. It contains information about the migration in country. Actually, migration was recorded beginning from first census of India conducted in 1881. That was a full census, first full census that was conducted. Okay. So this data was corrected. Everything is fine. Our first major modification was introduced in 1961 by bringing two additional component, right, vis-a-vis place of birth, village or town. That and all it is okay. Further, in 1971, additional information on the place also left. Okay. Okay. What are the informations you have in the census regarding the migration? Basic. Okay. Yeah. So here they have not defined the migration, right? But still, if you ask me what exactly is migration, as I said, change of residence other than the previous address which was there in the previous census. Okay. Now comes the stream of migration, right? Where exactly, say for example, stream of migrations as such. Now see, this is with respect to India, 2001 data, but still it gives you some of the very important aspects. See, for example, different types. When I talk about, right, forget about this intra-regional, inter-regional, interstate, international, all this you forget about it. Within India, We call them as what? Sectoral, intersectoral migration, intra-sectoral migration. What is this intersectoral? See, for example, for that I should understand what is this rural area versus urban area, right? Is there any difference between rural and urban area? If you ask me, people will say rural area means villages, urban area means cities. That is okay, but how do you say a place as a village, and how do you say a place as a town, city, or mega city? Okay, see, urban areas, even when I talk about a town, town is an urban area, city is an urban area, mega city is an urban area. Now, let's say, for example, our classification of town can be different. It can be class 1, class 2, class 5, whatever it is the town. Okay. The only thing is that what is the basic difference between urban and rural area, if you ask me? Very simple. Urban area, the predominant economic activity comes through, say, for example, primary activity, or to be very precise, I can say a land or a region which is, right, say, for example, predominant economic activity is agriculture. Urban area is the one where, see, agriculture is nothing but what? The primary sector. Correct. Urban area is the one, say for example, where the predominant, right, activity, right, will be either manufacturing or service. Right? Either it will be manufacturing or it is service. Or I can rewrite it. How I can rewrite it? Either it is secondary, economic activity, what I involve will be secondary or tertiary. Right? It will be secondary or tertiary. So whichever region agriculture is more dominant economic activity, you call them as what? Rural area. Wherever manufacturing or service industries or say for example dominating, you call them as what? Urban area. So urban area is that place where agriculture as an economic activity is very minimal. Okay. So that is what the basic difference between rural and urban areas. I repeat, rural is an agro-based economy, right? Urban area is either manufacturing or service-based economy. That's what the basic difference is. Having said this, if a person moves from rural area to rural area, right? Rural area to rural area, or if a person moves from urban area to urban area, right? Urban area to urban area, right? You call them as what? Intra-sectoral migration. It means he is not changing his profession. He is not changing his occupation. Am I right? So agricultural labor from one place to agricultural labor of another place, right? Similarly, my dear friends, this is intrastate, interstate, both they have given. Okay. Urban to urban means, say for example, from one town to another town. Am I right? Again, say for example, places similar. But somewhere I do have intersectoral migration from agriculture to manufacturing or service. And my dear friends, nowadays we also see a trend, right? People who are fed up in working with IT companies, right? Or why to say IT companies alone, right? People normally fed up with the corporate culture, right? Their dream is to have a peaceful life, a piece of land outside, right? And say, for example, there are successful candidates who practice agriculture also. So somewhere I also find from service sector, people are coming back to what? The primary sectors. Okay. You call them as what? Urban rural migration. Now, among them, my dear friends, among them, right? Interstate, intrastate, everything you take it. Everything you take it. Okay. Right. Particularly when I talk about rural to rural migration, right, is higher. Okay. Rural to rural. It means within the sector, the higher. And what is very, very important, normally, say for example, we have a laws of migration. And any law of migration, normally it says male will migrate more, female will migrate less. But very interestingly, when I talk about, say for example, Indian migration as a pattern, female migrates more, right? Female migrates more. And what is the reason? Reason is something very interesting. Reason is marriages, right? That's what, say, for example, the data says. Okay, right. So one thing which is slightly different from the rest of the world in India, rural to rural migration is maximum. That is one. Number two, in India, female migrates more than male, and the reason for this migration, cause of this migration, is marriage. range. Okay, right. All right, my dear friends. So having said this, spatial variation in this migration is also being discussed. Somewhere you can slightly read it. Now the cause of migration. See, when I talk about cause of migration, any migration you take it, my dear friends, two places are there, right? Two places. One, the place from where people migrate, you call them as what? Source, right? The place where exactly people move to, you call them as what? Destination. So normally people from, say for example, source will be moving toward destination, overcoming this intervening obstacles. Now most of the time, my dear friends, source is the place. For example, if I am moving out, I call them as what? Say for example, emigration, right? I call them as what? Emigration, right? Somewhere if I'm moving in, I call them as what? Immigration, emigrant and immigrant. Source area, I'll be having emigrants. Destination area, I'll be having what? Immigrants. Okay, this is one. Okay, source and destination. And number two, most of the time, my dear friends, source area, what you will be experiencing is a push factor, right? Not necessarily, but most of the source area you will be having a push factor. Destination area, you will be having a pull factor. What is this push and pull? There are n number of factors which is operating, which will make you to move away from this place. Okay, please go, something like that. It can be anything, unemployment, poverty, right? Even say, for example, war, internal security related issue, right? Say, for example, political instability, right? Extreme weather, right? All this can act as what? Push factor, right? The employability, never it. Even say, for example, having a good climate, right? All this can be what? Pull factor. See, pull and push is more perceptual in nature, but whatever factors tries to push you out from a place, you call them as what? Push factor. Whatever forces which tries to pull you towards it, you call them as what? Pull factor. Okay, right. So what is push and pull? Where exactly push and pull will be acting? That also I should know. Okay, right. Right, my friend. So again, causes, some of the causes, consequence. Consequence is what? See, when migration takes place in a larger degree or a scale, over a period of time, it will be resulting in what? Regional imbalance, number one. And number two, there is also a migration called as rural to urban, right? Rural to urban. If, say, for example, if rural to urban migration takes place, this also increases what? The so-called urbanization, right? The rural migrants come to an urban area. What happens there? Even the quality of the life will start what? Decreasing. Okay. So there can be n number of causes, right? Sorry, consequence, right? It can be economic consequence. It can be demographic consequence. Even it can be environmental consequence. It can be social consequence. N number of, say, for example, consequence I can have it. Okay. So that is all about some very important aspects of migration, my friends. Human development, I said, not needed for discussion, where you can somewhere you can do it by yourself. Okay. Again, when I talk about human settlement, my dear friends, see, humans versus animals. The basic difference, what exactly is the basic difference? Of course, it is all about one of the basic differences, what? Settlement. You're confined to a particular fixed place. Okay, you do not have something called as corridor. Okay, you cannot claim that this is my corridor. Okay, right. Now, we talk about settlement. Again, my dear friends, there are two types of settlement. One you call them as what? Rural settlement, and two you call them as what? Urban settlement. Simple. Settlement happening in the rural areas, you call them as what? Rural settlement. Happening in the urban areas, you call them as what? Urban settlement. That's okay. Now, here again, what differentiates that rural and urban? Say, for example, that area, you call them as what? The occupational pattern. Agriculture, say, for example, rural. Manufacturing and services, urban area. Now, when talk about, say, for example, different types of this rural settlement, my dear friends, there are plenty of, right? Say, for example, types. One, you call them as what? Clustered, agglomerated, or nucleated. I'll show you how exactly this clustered, right, looks like, right? Clustered. So, clustered area is a compact or a closely built houses. In this type villages, the generally living is, right, living area is distinct and separated from the surrounding farms, right? Surrounding farms. They are closely built up in an area, right? And its intervening streets present some recognizable pattern or geographical shape. Right? Make it very simple. Clustered means as a group, you'll be having all the houses somewhere located together. See, let me tell you, what is the advantage of cluster? Normally, even villages, even Google Maps and all, if you search it, clustered will be very common. Why? Because see, India as a country, I understand, say for example, India is the seventh largest country in the world. Seventh largest. But eventually we are going to be the most populous country. Of course, as of now, given the data, we are second most populous. Right? So somewhere, for example, when I talk about the area of India, somewhere when I talk about the entire, say for example, almost the world, the area of India, what exactly it contributes, somewhere around, it can be somewhere around 2 to 4%, whatever it is the case. Right? Very small area in the sense, seventh largest country, I'm not denying the fact. Right? But when I talk about population, right, or the share of population, we have nearly 17 percentage of the world's population share. So the population pressure will be very, very high. Correct? The availability of the land for the practice of agriculture will also be very, very high. And one more thing, agriculture, green revolution, we have not achieved something called as scale neutrality. What is the scale neutrality? For example, normally you call them as economy of scale. If I have a larger land, right? Right? If I have a larger land, somewhere I understand my per, say for example, cost per hectare of a land or acre of a land will be less. You call them as what? Say for example, almost you call them as what? Right? Economy of scale. Only thing is that even manufacturing, I can somewhere I can understand this. If I'm increasing the number of units that is manufactured, the cost per product will be reduced. That's the reason China always, you see, they go for mass production, so it will reduce. So what I'm telling you, given the population pressure, the per capita holding of land is very, very minimum. Excuse me, very minimum. Say for example, per capita land holding we have. Okay. So given the case, my dear friends, what happens once in rural area, if you're going for a clustered, right, very compacted kind of a, say for example, almost will be the larger area can be left for the practice of agriculture. So all this agricultural land will not be divided. It will not be, say for example, almost land will not be nucleated. Okay, fine. So what is this clustered? We have an idea. If that is the case, semi-clustered or fragmented, somewhere I can understand that what exactly they are trying to say. Same clustered, it means say for example, 2 or 3 groups it can be located. Hamleted. Hamleted in the sense, I'll be having say for example, the settlement, but say for example, slightly away, say for example, almost from the villages, I'll be having a separate, say for example, small group of settlements. Okay. So wherever the socio-economic, right, divides or more, this hamleted type of settlement will also be more. Then dispersed or isolated. Okay. Most of the mountain-like regions I'll be having dispersed. Here and there it will be scattered. Okay, right. Then coming to the urban settlement, my dear friends. Now the biggest question, what is an urban area? I told you that any places, any region where the primary economic, okay, the major economic activity is either manufacturing or service. Either it is secondary activity or tertiary activity, you call them as what? Urban area. Okay. Now here, when talk about urban area, my dear friends, urban area. How exactly we classify this urban area? I'll tell you, there are a few conditions to classify this urban area, right? Number one, for classifying this urban area, right? The very first, okay, I'm just looking for this classification of town. Administrative town, that and all, it is okay. Okay, it is not given. But actually speaking, census defines it. Okay. So there are others classifications, other say for example criteria for classifying a town. Number one, it says at least 75 percentage of the male working population should be engaged in non-agricultural activity. They say at least more than 75 percentage of male working population, not everybody, male working population should be engaged in non-agricultural activity, right? You call them as urban area, right? Number two, not only one, it also says population should be more than 5,000, that is okay, but density of population should be more than 400. At least 400 people living, right, should be living per what square kilometer of an area. Then only I can call it as what? An urban area. Of course, census reclassification also we have. Apart from that, we also have administrative classifications of town, right? For example, capitals normally directly by the Gazette notification, you'll be declaring them as a town. We'll be having industrial towns. Jamshedpur as an industrial town. Even say for example, when I talk about say for example, Neyveli is an industrial town, right? Then the transport cities, right? Mostly say for example, which acts as an intermediate port of transit. You have commercial town, mining town, and so on, my dear friends. Okay, right. So, what is urban area, rural area? We have an idea. Okay, right. And that should be fair enough for the ideas of what we are going to develop. Okay, right. So, human settlement also we have an idea. I said land resource and agriculture, as I already said. Land resource, yes, you can have a reading, but agriculture rely on NIOS material. Okay, that too, the basic ideas I should have. When I talk about agriculture, okay, when I talk about agriculture, the basic ideas I should have. What is the basic idea? First and foremost, when I talk about, say, for example, agriculture, what exactly are the different types of crop we have? Okay, so major crops. What do you mean by kharif crop? You call them as a cropping season. Kharif season is more like a monsoonal crop. And all these crops, my dear friends, they'll be needing more of temperature and more of water. Then Rabi crops are winter crops. Temperature needed will also be less. Rainfall expected will also be what? Less. Zaid is a dry summer crop. Say, for example, the temperature needed for, say, for example, Zaid plants should be more. More than the temperature, the length of the day should be more. Dry summers. And say, for example, the precipitation should be very, very less. Why exactly they say the precipitation should be less, I'll tell you. Because when I say precipitation is less, my dear friends, precipitation is less. Somewhere, most of the flowering plants, horticultural plants, or say, for example, seasonal fruits and vegetables, for flowering to happen, you need, say, for example, a longer length of a day. You need a longer length of a day for flowering to happen. Okay. So what happens? Summer is the ideal condition where you have the longer length of a day. Then what happens if at all if you have a precipitation, right? This precipitation will be somewhere detaching. Somewhere it will be detaching the, say for example, flowers from the plant itself. Okay. So that's the reason normally, say for example, the Zaid crops, mostly the flowering crops will be cultivated during the Zaid season, right? It's given, right? Seasonal vegetables, seasonal fruits, etc. Okay, right. Some of the examples are also given, right? But they have not, say, for example, discussed in a detailed fashion, right? What is the condition needed for, say, for example, rice, etc., rice, wheat, right? Geographical condition needed for it, exactly it is not given. Only thing is that they are discussed about the other aspects, but not the geographical aspects, okay? So that's the reason somewhere I told you, you prefer rely on NIOS material, and that too, when it comes to food crops, my dear friends, when it comes to food grains or food crops, concentrate on three, right? You concentrate on rice, you concentrate on wheat, and all, say for example, millets, all millets, right? So jowar, bajra, and ragi. Maize also we can leave it, but jowar, bajra, and ragi you have to take it. Okay, right. Then when I talk about, say, for example, this, apart from food grains, right? What are the others, right? What I can say, for example, concentrate. I can talk about what, say, for example, the commercial crops or the cash crops. When I talk about commercial crops, they are not given a special heading called as commercial crops, but still okay. Fiber crops also I can take it. Only thing is that I'll go for a commercial crop, right? Cotton, I can take it. Jute, I can take it. Sugarcane is not a fiber crop, but still it is a commercial crop, right? So these three somewhere you can understand. And when it comes to sugarcane, my dear friends, try to differentiate between two varieties of canes what we have in India, the tropical variety and subtropical variety. Okay. And when it comes to plantation crops, my dear friends, three is sufficient: tea, coffee, and rubber. And what is very interesting, tea and coffee, somewhere, even with NIOS material, somewhere if you look for the essential condition needed for tea and coffee plantation, both are plantation crop. What is a plantation crop? Normally, they say plantation crop is a crop which is cultivated in a larger estate-like region. That and all it is okay. But as a layman, if you want to understand what is a plantation crop, any plant or anything which is planted in a region and it stands in this region for more than 3 years, you call them as what? Plantation crop. As a layman, that is what my understanding is. But what is the beauty here? Tea and coffee, geographical condition, there is no much difference, right? And about tea, tea also needs hot and humid climatic condition. Coffee also needs hot and humid climatic condition. Now you may wonder, what is this? You're saying hot and humid climatic condition, but most of the tea and coffees are there in the colder region, right? If you take a close look, you'll be finding, right? Okay, if it is not hot and humid, say at least it is subhumid. Okay. When I say only the Piedmont, lower locations of a mountain, I'll be having this tea and coffee because both tea and coffee, frost is injurious. That's the reason, say, for example, a place where the condition is very cold, they'll not go for it. Okay. Again, if you ask me what is common to both, well drained soil. Just because it needs well drained soil, they are normally cultivated along the mountain slopes, right? Well drained soil. Apart from the well drained soil, my dear friends, normally they say coffee is a shade loving plant. On the other hand, if I just talk about tea, tea, I understand. Again, I understand. Tea, say for example, having a shady plant is beneficial, right? Having a shady plant is beneficial. So more or less what I understand, say for example, the temperature needed, amount of precipitation needed, the kind of a soil that is needed, more or less it is same. But what is the difference, I'll tell you. And talk about tea, my dear friends. Tea is introduced by Britishers, whereas coffee is introduced by fellow Indian, right? Our own Indian. You heard about Baba Budan. Baba Budan is the one who planted the first coffee plantation in Karnataka. Then mountain itself today you call them as what? Baba Budan Hills. This is one difference. Number two, tea do not have a pattern of flowering. It is all about leaves. Am I right? It is all about processing the leaf as such. But coffee, you have a flowering season. It becomes a berry, right? It becomes a bunch of a berry. Am I right? Then again, say for example, this berries goes for ripening, right? Of course, it becomes a bean and you have a process. So what happens during that, say for example, flowering time, flowering time, much of precipitation should not be needed. But when I talk about ripening time, you need precipitation. Correct? You need precipitation. But flowering time alone, you need a, say for example, dry spell. The dry spell is not needed for tea plantation. Otherwise, coffee and tea, much variation is not there. Okay? Apart from that, rubber you add it, that should be more than enough. Right? So we have taken the case of agriculture also. Water resource, I'll just give you an overall idea about the water resource. Basic idea about water resource. See, for example, if you ask me, right? Right? Okay. Okay. So when I talk about the water resources, Official means data says India accounts for 2.45% of the world's surface area. We know it. Okay, that's what I said. The area what we have is somewhere around, say for example, 2 to 4. I said it should be 2 to 3, right? 2.45% of the world's surface area it occupies. But what is somewhere, if I just talk about the fresh water availability or the water resource, India accounts only for 4% of world's water resource. Only 4% of world's water resource it occupies. Okay. But if you talk about population, as of today, the population of India stands at 17%. See the imbalance. 4% of land, sorry, the 4% of availability of water, but it has to serve 17% of the population. So there is a gross mismatch between the availability of the water, fresh water, and say for example, the population, what it can serve. Number one. Okay, right. But on the flip side, right, on the flip side, always they say there is always light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, so hope so. On that way, if you ask me, my difference, entire India, what exactly is the amount of precipitation we receive? By all means, the monsoonal wind, southwest monsoon, northeastern monsoon, local showers, western disturbance, everything put together, on an average, we receive somewhere around 4,000 cubic kilometer, right? Say for example, cubic kilometer of water you receive. But if you ask me, what is the water demand of India? All demands, if I just take it, right? The major demand comes through agriculture and industries. Am I right? The agricultural demand, the industrial demand. Say, for example, the portability, right? Water for sanitation, right? The potable waters, everything you put together. They say the demand of water for entire India or Indians is only what? Somewhere around 3,000 cubic, say, for example, kilometer of water. If that is the case, my dear friends, what we get is 4,000 and what we need is what? Right? Only 3,000. But if this is the fact, somewhere it appears that, say, for example, we have somewhere water surplus in nature, but actually it is not. Because I'll tell you, though 4,000 cubic kilometer of water we receive, what exactly gets stored in the surface and slightly subsurface replenishable groundwater, if you ask me, it is only 1,869 cubic kilometer. Then you may possess that means almost you can ask me next question, right? Right? See, for example, we are getting 4,000. Why don't we save all 4,000? Saving all 4,000 is not possible. Okay, assuming tomorrow you're not allowing any of the precipitated water to go and say, for example, right, confluence in the oceans. Assume that, say, for example, you are constructing the dam across every region you go. What happens? The normal process of denudation will be affected, right? The flooding as a process will be affected, right? Kadar and Bangar, somewhere, say for example, rejuvenation of the soil. Say for example, you would have heard about new alluvial and old alluvial soil. Say for example, deposition will get affected. The fertility of the soils will get affected. More than everything, delta formations will get affected. If delta formation is getting affected, sea wave erosion will increase. Am I right? Somewhere the e-flow of the river will be somewhere restricted. So n number of, say for example, restrictions you have. But whatever be the case, right? The available water, groundwater, what we have, usable water is only what? 1,869 cubic kilometer of what? Water. It means we are shortage. We are in somewhere, right? Somewhere we are water stressed country. There is no denial about it. We are water stressed country. And that's the reason every time we talk about the somewhere water use efficiency, somewhere everywhere. Is it whether it is, say, for example, the agriculture or, say, for example, the industrial usage, always we say that somewhere we have to look for this increasing the efficiency of this usage. Okay, and that should be fine enough, my dear friends. This discussion alone should give you a larger idea as such, right? So somewhere this chapter talks about the distribution of this water. Okay, right. Now, having said this, the very next topic, minerals and energy resources. More of facts are there, but let me tell you, there is one, say for example, topic in your mains examination. which says distribution of key natural resources. Distribution of key natural resources across the world, including India. So, if you ask me resource, I can discuss about either mineral resources or these resources can be energy resources. Again, these mineral resources, my dear friends, either I can classify them as metallic minerals and non-metallic minerals. Energy resources, again, renewable energy and non-renewable energy. But what is very important? Key natural resource. If I insist this word key, am I right? Few very important metallic minerals, few very important non-metallic minerals, right? Some of the very important conventional energy resources, right? And important non-conventional energy resources. Most of the non-conventional energy resources are renewable resources. So my focus should somewhere revolve around this renewable resources. Okay, right. So somewhere I'm just giving you an idea that how exactly this particular chapter should be studied. Okay, then comes manufacturing industries, my dear friends. The locational aspect of manufacturing industries. Where, what type of industries we have? What is the nature of this industry? Whether this industry is a weight losing industry or a weight gaining industries. What are the different factors? Say, for example, geographic factors that determines the locational aspect of industries. Where exactly I have the market access? Where I have, say, for example, the availability of the raw material. What is the cost of the land? Where exactly I have the availability of the labor, right? Every aspect, uninterrupted power supply, which is also affordable. Everything has to be right taken care. And even the manufacturing industries also, particularly when I talk about the locational aspect of manufacturing industries, that is also very, very important. And finally, my dear friends, somewhere leaving this planning, coming to this transport and communication, right? Coming to transport and communication, particularly transport is very important. I'll show you. International trade also we can skip it. But when I talk about transport, my dear friends, where I have to concentrate, I'll tell you, right? Few updates we have, right? See, even this year's preliminary examination, right? Preliminary examination. Very interestingly, they talked about the golden quadrilateral, right? They talked about this north, south, and east west corridor. Actually, they talked about east west corridor. Okay, right? Exactly. Say, for example, the same statement is given. Okay, say, for example, north, south, and east west corridor they are given, right? So, according to them, the east west corridor, say, for example, connects Silchar in Assam to Porbandar in Gujarat. But in examination, they have given a statement as what? It was connecting somewhere Dibrugarh to what? Surat in Gujarat. Okay, right. So, some of the very important, ambitious land, say for example, road connectivity, you have to take it. And one more thing, very recently, the national highways have been renumbered, my dear friends. They have been renumbered, right? They have been renumbered. When I talk about renumbering, we have a very systematic renumbering. Today, any national highway which is oriented in north-south fashion, we use even numbers. Any national highway which is oriented east-west in direction, we use odd numbers, right? So kindly look for this new pattern of national highways. And here in this, say for example, chapter, they have also discussed about water transport, particularly inland waterways. And say for example, this is slightly outdated, say for example, the material what I am using it, right? Because the older edition of NCERT. According to this NCERT, the number of national waterways in India are only 5. But interestingly, the number of national waterways in India today stands at 111. At one instance, my dear friends, 106 national highways were added at one instance. Actually speaking, it is 5 plus 1 plus 105. Whatever be the equation, as of today, 111 national waterways are there. Now, if you ask me, is there any easy way of remembering it? Of course, there are easy way of remembering it. I'll tell you how. For remembering 111, as I said, 111 is nothing but what? 5 already existing 5 plus another proposed 106. My dear friends, you just have to remember this 5. National Highway 1, Ganga, Allahabad to Haldia. Not even Allahabad, it is Prayagraj. Right? Prayagraj to Haldia. I know it. The largest navigable channel in India. National Waterway number 2 is Sadia to Dubri of Brahmaputra. 3 is the West Coast Canal which connects Kollam to Kottapuram. 4 is East Coast Canal which connects Kakinada to Puducherry, right? Otherwise also called as, say for example, Buckingham Canal. And National Highway 5 is a man-made canal again, which connects almost, say for example, the Gangetic Delta versus Brahma, right? Mahanadi Delta. If I can remember this national highway, sorry, excuse me, waterway 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I can remember 111 very easily. Because if you ask me remaining 106, they are simply arranged in alphabetical order, right? Say for example, national highway number 6 is a river called as I. Then comes Ajay, and slowly it increases. 110 is Yamuna, and 111 we have a river called as Zuari, right? Starts with alphabet Z, Z. Okay, so systematically it is given in alphabetical order. If you remember 5, 111, you can remember it. And this is a gist of the NCERT topics, what I can largely focus when it comes to what? The human geography of India. And of course, the name of the book you call them as what? India, People and Economy. People means social, social economic, or socio-economic is the other name for human geography, right? Right, my dear friends. So here we are somewhere completing this Indian human geography NCERT, right? Just okay. Right, my dear friends. So some other class, some other occasion, we'll keep meeting. Thank you and God bless.